warm welcome, dear listener and viewer of Radio Maria Kenya, Nairobi. I hope you're all enjoying the new year 2023. I welcome you to another episode on Beatitudes with Bishop Rodrigo Mejia. Welcome, Bishop.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you're very much welcome. How is your new year?
It was okay, very peaceful.
Yeah. I'm happy. Well, my dear listener, I'm your host and presenter, the mother and daughter Waidera Wainaina. On our previous episodes, we've been speaking about the Beatitudes, and specifically today we'll be speaking on the third Beatitude, which is happy are the meek. But before we begin, Bishop, kindly you can introduce yourself for the sake of the first-time listener who is listening to you.
Okay, yes, I am. My name is Rodrigo Mejia. I have born in Colombia, South America, but I have lived practically all my life here in Africa. I came first in 1964 to Congo, 20 years. Then after that in 84 here in Kenya. Then they sent me in 98 to Ethiopia. There they made me bishop. Pope Ratzinger made me bishop. And then in 2014 I am here again in Kenya as a retired bishop, but not tired. And
you don't look tired, you're really energized.
So I am glad to continue this program on the Beatitudes. Today we start the third Beatitude, happy are the meek, yes. They will inherit the earth.
Yeah. Yes, the word meek, you just said happy are the meek. The word meek is not very much used in our daily conversations. Could you explain the meaning of this word in the third Beatitude?
Yes, you're right. Meek is Greek, is English word translating the corresponding in Greek in the text, original text of the gospel. And for the Greek people, meek at that time was an adjective qualifying animals, not people, but pets that people kept at home, like dogs, like horses, like even birds, etc., all kind of pets. And some of them, if they are not domesticated, if they are not tamed, they may be harmful, especially the dogs. When an animal has been tamed, educated, trained, and was harmless completely for the visitors, they call this animal is meek. That was the original meaning of that. That is not aggressive, is not violent, is not attacking anybody.
Very calm.
Is calm.
Okay.
So later on, it is applied to people. Mm-hmm. Because in the gospel, in this beatitude, happy are the meek means happy are those who are not for violence, that contain themselves, restrain themselves, that are gentle, even in difficulties where other people may be violent. Mm-hmm. They keep themselves, they control themselves.
Wow, that is nice. So happy are the meek, very calm people.
Yeah.
Well, the other one is at the beginning of this series of the Beatitudes, you affirmed that the Beatitudes are the self-portrait of Jesus Christ himself. So how can this Beatitude apply to Jesus, and how do we know that he was meek?
Well, first of all the life of Christ, because in the time of, before the birth of Christ, in the preaching of John the Baptist that we have heard during these past weeks in Advent, they were expecting the Messiah. But they were expecting a Messiah, some people were expecting a political Messiah, a warrior, a military leader that would free Israel from the power of the Romans. Palestine, the land of Jesus, was a colony of the Romans, of the Roman Empire. So they had this idea, but it was not that way. The Messiah was not a political, was not a warrior, was not a military leader. Others were expecting a spiritual leader, but very tough, very punishing very strongly the sinners, condemning people, no? But Jesus appears, and Jesus is not condemning anybody. On the contrary, he is looking for the sinners to forgive them, forgiving the sinners even of people who were not asking for forgiveness, not condemning the sinners, but trying to gain them for conversion, but with a great meek attitude. In all his life it was like that. So that, not only that, but it appears in a very explicit way during his passion. During his passion, he was the object of insults, the object of attacks, flagellation, crucifixion, etc. He did not react with violence. And on the other hand, he reacted with meekness when he was hit on the cheek, and sometimes in the gospel he says you have to put the other cheek.
Yes.
But that cannot be taken literally, because Jesus himself did not put the other cheek, but he reacted meekly by saying, if I have done something wrong, you let me, why? Tell me no why. But if I did not do anything wrong, why do you hit me? So the meek is not just passivity, is not just allow everybody to insult you, everybody to abuse you, everybody to take advantage of you, and you don't react at all, you are like a statue there. No, that is not meekness. Meekness implies a self-control, a self-control, not to respond one eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, as they were, not to revenge. The meek refuses revenge. The meek refuses to pay with the same coin the offense of the other. That is why all the life of Jesus reveals that even sometimes, even in the temple, he may have angry. He was angry because they were abusing in the temple the merchants, and they were cheating the people with the change of the money, etc. It's not the absence of wrath, the absence of anger, but the way you control yourself with the grace of God sometimes, because it's a gift from God. The Beatitudes are all grace from God. So that is how he gave himself, and at the moment he said, learn from me who are meek and humble of heart. That is also written in the gospel.
Thank you very much. And the society in which we live in, sometimes very aggressive and violent, is not dangerous to be meek. It's not dangerous to be meek and passive in front of violence and not to defend ourselves. So is it not true that the right to defend oneself is a human right?
Yeah, clearly. The right to self-defense is allowed. And even in a sense, Jesus allowed even the disciples to protect themselves. When he sent them in mission and the first training, he told them, if they don't receive you, they don't welcome you in one village, move to the other village. Don't insist, don't be there. Don't give an occasion for you to be object of violence. That is the first thing of defending oneself, to use preventive defense. That is, not to start yourself in such a way that you prompt violence from the other side. But on the other hand, to protect yourself and to defend yourself from attacks is permitted, clearly. But there is a kind of defense that is not included in this defense. People say popular, in the military jargon, for example, they said the best way of defense is to attack. And that is not really. That they may be very rude in football, in the football match. Instead of replying to the defense, you go to attack the other. That is true in that case, yes. But not in life, because the reaction is, if you attack, the other counter-attack, and violence will never end, yes. Because it's all the time repaying the other with more violence. And that kind of self-defense is not the real one. So that is why the right to defense is acknowledged, but a defense that is proportionate. When Jesus asked the employee of the high priest, why do you hit me? He is defending himself, but he is defending with justice, not with weapons. Defending with the truth, the power of the truth, the power of dialogue. Dialogue is a way of defense, of reaching peace, but not through weapons, not through violence.
Yes, very true. Well, to get angry is a common reaction, especially in the face of unjust situation. How can we apply this attitude, this beatitude at that moment?
Yeah, again, the beatitude does not say, happy are those who never get angry. No, that is impossible. If there is a normal human being, he gets angry. Sometimes there are circumstances in which we get angry. If I find, for example, I am on the street, sometimes I see young mothers with babies begging on the street.
Yes.
Let us suppose that I pass, and instead of giving a coin or some shillings as an alm, I slap the child on the face. If the woman there does not get angry, that means for sure she is not the mother of the baby.
True.
It's clear.
Yeah.
Because if it is a mother, he has to get angry.
Yes.
Angry is even an effect of love in many cases. It's an effect of witnessing an injustice, But it's a feeling. The beatitude does not suppress this feeling because that will be unhuman. But the beatitude says control, master this feeling. Don't use this feeling as motivation for your reaction. Keep cool, control yourself. There are other ways where you can obtain justice, you can obtain, the truth will end by winning the dispute or the battle or the fighting. So it's not a matter of the absence of anger, which is abnormal, but the absence of violence in acting under the anger. Even the parents are advised when they punish their children, even if they beat them, but to do that proportionally and without under the effect of anger.
Yeah.
Later on, wait until you are cooled down, then you punish your child, but not because otherwise the child gets a wrong message. I am punished because my father is angry, not because I did something wrong.
Right.
Okay.
Now we get it. Welcome back, dear listener. We're still on the third beatitude with Bishop Rodrigo. In case you're tuning in right now, we're speaking about the third beatitude, happy are the meek. And as we continue, Bishop, how did the apostle of Jesus live this beatitude in their lives? What was their teaching about the meekness?
Well, among the 12, they had to learn to become meek.
Right.
Because sometimes they were reacting in favor of Jesus, but with anger. For example, at the moment Jesus entered a city of Samaria. In Samaria, the Jews were not very welcome. The Samaritans were another tribe, another dissident family of the Jewish family. So they did not welcome very much Jesus, and John and James, the two brothers, the disciples of Jesus, proposed to Jesus, can we pray God that he may send fire from heaven to destroy this city or to punish this city, And Jesus told them, no, don't use that violence, Later on, Jesus will enter the same city through with the dialogue with the Samaritan woman, and they will welcome him, and many will believe in him. Right. So they had at the beginning, even Peter was with Jesus in the garden the night when he was arrested. And he had a sword with him, a short sword, and then when they tried to attack Jesus, he cut the ear of one of the employees of the temple. And Jesus told him, Peter, put your sword into the sheath, because the one who kills by the sword, he will be killed later on by the sword. So no violence. Now, little by little, they learn the lesson, especially during the Passion of Christ, who did not use violence at all to defend himself. All of them practically died fruit of violence in the persecution. But at that moment they were already mature. They have learned the lesson. And especially James gives us, in the first letter of James, there are good teaching. He says, who among you is wise and understanding? Let him show his way by a good life in humility and meekness that comes from wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, do not boast and be forced to the truth. So don't be moved by jealousy that leads to revenge, that leads to violence. And also, Peter in his teaching says the same. Peter says that we have to give an account why we are Christians when we are persecuted. But we have to be careful to give that account or hurting other religions. We have to teach that. And Paul, these three, James, Peter, and Paul, have the great teaching on meekness. Through the gentleness and clemency of Christ in the second letter to the Corinthians. Meekness is very important to build up the Christian community. If there is no meekness, if we react violently every time we are in disagreement, we cannot build a community. Yeah. And that is very useful, for example, in the building of the small Christian communities. You know, we may have different diversity of opinions, or we have to make a decision and I have one opinion, the other has the other opinion. But I have to be careful that my opinion, if I see that the majority have a different opinion, I don't get angry and I don't get violent and I don't get using violence of words, because violence may be in deeds with weapons, physical, or may be intellectual with my words. I might become violent. And so that is why he says build a community, and he recommends Timothy, that was his great collaborator. A slave, a servant of the Lord, should not quarrel, but should be meek to everyone, able to teach, tolerant, correcting opponents with kindness. That is in the second letter to Timothy, in second chapter. So when we read this, we see there are really, they learn the lesson of meekness, especially in the time of their maturity. And they left us a lot of teaching. That is, in my book, I expressed all the text about James, Peter, and Paul teaching about meekness and how meekness builds up community.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there's always this promise that is given to this beatitude that they will inherit the earth. What is the meaning of this promise? What are they going to exactly are they going to inherit? Is this the riches? What is this? What does it mean?
Yeah, literally, if we take the expression literally, we may think that they will inherit a plot.
Yeah.
In a very place, in the city or something like that. Yeah. No. The notion of earth at that moment is not just a piece of land. Mm-hmm. No. First of all, to inherit the earth is an expression that comes from the Old Testament. And it is applied to the promise that Yahweh, God, made to the Israelites in Egypt when they had no land. Yeah. They were slaves. Mm-hmm. They had no country of their own. So God promised them to give them a land, the promised land. Yeah. Now, all the faithful, and that explains the Exodus all through the desert for 40 years toward the promised land. And those who are there, even at the moment of entering, some are afraid. And Joshua tells them, for me and my house, I will follow the Lord. I entered the land because it's the land God promised to us. So, in the same way, this became the promise of the definitive land in which we are going to live, which is not this land of this world, is the new earth and new land. And we have that really in the teaching of Peter. He says, what we are waiting for is the new heavens and the new earth. That is the real country to which we'll be citizens forever. Heaven is the final promise. That is why this beatitude is not just a promise material for this life, but is promising that if we are meek in this earth, that is one way to win the eternal salvation, the land on the other side. However, there is another way of inheriting earth in this life, and it is to be a real master of your life. That is, the violence are not master of themselves. By not being masters of themselves, but masters of their anger, masters of their jealousy, they have problems with everybody in this life. And they have quarrels, fights with everybody. The meek, in the long run, have more peace. I mean, they establish themselves, and socially speaking, they live with more harmony and more fraternity with other people. Meekness gains friendship, gains peace. Violence and aggressivity gains enemies. And then you are not living in peace even in this land, even in this earth. That is another application of this
they will inherit the earth.
Yeah.
Yes. Right, so basically when you are meek, you are always happy.
Yeah, peaceful.
Yes.
You are master of yourself.
Yeah.
Master of the situation, we say.
Right,
Yeah.
Very true. Well, it seems that in the gospel there is a call for violence, because in the gospel of Matthew chapter 11 verse 12 it is written that the kingdom of heaven suffers violence and the violent are taking it by force. So how to understand these words of Jesus? How do we get them? How do we understand?
Yeah, it's one of these sentences in the gospel that are typical of the pedagogy of the Jews. Mm-hmm. They use the words but with a kind of different senses, different meanings, the same word. The violence will take them. Who are the violent in this sentence? Not those who do violence to others, but those who do violence to themselves. You know, to control themselves, you need to be violent against you, to restrain yourself, not to give full flow to your feelings, to your emotions, to your jealousy, to your anger. No. So this kind of self-restraint implies that you make an effort. It's not passive. Meekness is not a natural quality. Nobody in this life, nobody is born meek. Nobody. Even the small babies, if you pay attention, the first reaction they have is violent. When the baby is looking for someone and the mother does not want to give it and take it by force from his hand because it's dangerous, let's just say a knife or something like that, the baby beats the mother. And nobody is angry because of that. We are not, because the baby is reacting instinctively. So instinctively we tend to violence. We have to make ourselves violence in order to be corrected. So that is the meaning of that sentence.
Meekness should grow with time. Thank you very much. Finally, as we are winding up this episode, what would be the message of the Beatitudes? The Beatitude for the world of our times?
Well, the world of our times, maybe of all the times, but we are not here to analyze in the past times. We have had 2 world wars. This is not the fruit of meekness. 2 world wars. We have had the atomic bomb, killing 110,000 people in Japan, in Nagasaki, Hiroshima. This is violence, pure violence. I mean, killing people who were not soldiers, lay people, civil people. What are we witnessing? There is always war somewhere in our world today. And these days, for example, we are living the great drama of the war in Ukraine. A war that is very dangerous, that may escalate in a world war, really, because the main powers of the world are implied in it, But there is no dialogue, there are no efforts, that is a kind of competition of weapons. This competition of weapons gave birth to an industry. The industry of the production of weapons is one of the greatest industries in the world today. The weapons market. If you go to Google and you digit weapons market in the world, they will give you all the statistics which are the countries that export weapons. And they are not produced by the people who fight. They are produced by the people in peace, but they are sold to the people who fight. They exploit the violence and they create this market. Pope Francis was very clear when he visited years back the United States. He had a speech in front of the United Nations. He had a speech in front of the American Parliament, and the Congress, and the parliaments. And then he told them, please suppress this weapons market. The same people give weapons, they are killing one another. When the war is finished, the same country that sold the weapons give the humanitarian help. You see? So what is contradiction? It's a contradiction. But since our mentality today is run not by justice, but by economy. Economy is the rule now for the relations. This weapons market has created a lot of jobs. It's normal to produce weapons. And they have an excuse. If we suppress the weapons, there will be thousands of people jobless. But they don't understand that the industry may produce other things that are not weapons and that create the same jobs. So for the people of our times, this message of the Beatitudes is very, very opportune. Even in Kenya, for example, we have, thanks God, we have peace in the country. But we hear from time to time these tribal clashes between the pastoralists, the tribes, etc., and then the problem is because tribalism. Tribalism is one of the main sources of violence. And thanks God, for example, this year, after the election, we did not have the violence we had in the past elections. That means that the society is getting progress, is getting more educated, is getting tamed, is getting meek.
Enjoying their happiness.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, but I think this message should be conveyed since the kindergarten to the children, primary school, secondary school, to say how our social and politics is very good, but without violence, without weapons, with the power of the truth and the intellectual approach of the dialogue with the other, the respect of human rights, etc. Violence, one aspect where we have to still to grow is in the way of treating with the bandits or delinquents or criminal people, that the only thing is to send them to prison. But if we visit the prisons in Kenya, they are overcrowded, and they are not re-educating the people as is expected. So there is even violence inside the prisons. They are very dangerous for that, even among the prisoners themselves. We have to realize how to deal with these people who cannot live peacefully in society, to give them a way of re-educating themselves so that they may come back to the society without violence and they become meek. So the Beatitudes have many applications in education, in secondary, primary, secondary education, even from kindergarten. If the child receives the message, fighting is not the solution. That we will have what is a new heaven and a new earth in the world.
Yes, thank you very much. As you're winding up today's discussion, is there anything that you think you might have left out of today's discussion on the Beatitudes, on the third Beatitude, happy are the meek?
Well, one of the things I will say is about this Beatitude and the Beatitudes in general.
Yes.
That is, Christians, Catholics, when we are taught as children, prepare for First Communion, how to prepare for confession. People go immediately to the 10 Commandments. Don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't kill, don't. The 10 Commandments are valid and they remain valid. But the Beatitudes go beyond that. And if we are really Christian Catholics, we should examine ourselves in the light of Beatitudes to see whether we are really living according to the mentality of Christ. The 10 Commandments were given by God through Moses. This is given directly by Jesus Christ himself. And it is like his own portrait, as you asked me at the very beginning, you know? So a good Catholic should not be happy only with the 10 Commandments that practically are prohibitions, negative. Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. The Beatitudes do not forbid anything. The Beatitudes are inviting for active, positive attitudes in life. And I think that in our catechesis, in the preparation for First Communion, even for catechesis for adults, we should come to this chapter 5 of Matthew, and that is what moved me to write the book on the Beatitudes as path to happiness, that they may be better known, better understood, and better practiced.
Thank you very much. I think time is not on our side, but before we conclude, you can at least show your listener or your viewer the book that you're speaking about on the Beatitudes, and you are the author. It's called The Beatitudes, Road to Happiness by Bishop Rodrigo Mejia. Right?
Yeah.
Did I pronounce it well?
Yeah, very good.
Thank you very much.
Well. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I wish you and all the listeners a happy new year.
Happy New Year to
Thank you.
Bishop. Yes, and that marks the end of our episode today. I've been your host and presenter, the mother and daughter Waigwera Wainaina. Have a blessed evening ahead.